Great. Looks like we're live, Lawrence.
Great.
Awesome. Hey guys, welcome back to another. Well, I wouldn't call this an episode. We're trying something new. It's kind of like an Ask Me Anything session. And I have to say, this was completely Lawrence's idea. He reached out and he said, hey, you know what? Uh, with the current turmoil and everything that's going on, folks probably have a lot of questions. And he was very gracious enough to volunteer his time to kind of see if folks had questions and kind of walk us through them. Uh, Lawrence, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm the big fan of the podcast, so it's an honor to be here.
Do you want to give us a quick introduction of yourself, Lawrence?
Yeah, sure. So I'm based in New York City. I mean, I live in Brooklyn.
Nice.
Um, these days, I mainly work from home, so pretty much Brooklyn based. Um, I am an immigrant myself, although I came about 25 years ago from Switzerland to
Oh,
the US.
okay.
And I was a lawyer in Switzerland already, and then I went back to law school here, and almost by accident, like a lot of immigration lawyers, and ended up in immigration. I I do mainly business immigration. I
Okay,
do a little bit of family immigration, and yeah, some other stuff, but
gotcha.
mainly business immigration. Yeah.
So when you say business, that means H-1Bs and L-1s and all of those.
Yeah, L1s, a lot of E2s,
E2s. Okay, okay,
E2s, O1s or EB1As, EB1C,
okay. Awesome.
stuff like that.
Okay. It's cool you mentioned E2. I think maybe not today, but a later time. That's definitely something that not a lot of people know about. Maybe we can revisit that at some point and talk about E2s
Sure,
in a
my
little more
pleasure.
in depth. Uh, Fun fact: we met Lawrence. I think it was 2 years ago it was close to December, if I remember correctly. He was very kind. He posted a note on LinkedIn for the podcast he follows, and at that point, Sanjay and I were like, "Oh, Note's probably listening to us. We're just wasting time doing it." And then he posts this note stating how much he liked our podcast. So thank you for that. I don't think I ever got a chance to thank you in person, but much appreciated.
No, sure. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts in general, and I listen to a bunch of immigration related podcasts. And what I like about yours is really, I mean, you guys are not lawyers. Most people who do that are lawyers. That has certain pros, but it has a certain cons. You guys have just a much different approach. It feels much fresher and in a way more interesting. It's for me, it's almost more interesting to listen to you guys than to some other immigration lawyer who will just recite me the law. Um, but
I'm sure every episode you're like, these guys got it wrong again.
no, absolutely not. In fact, no. In fact, it's very intriguing. You guys bring up issues that I had never thought about. And some of your stories were really fascinating.
Oh,
So
well, thank you again, Lawrence. Much appreciated. So, for folks who are tuning in for the first time, what we did was I put out a bunch of posts on social media asking people to send in their questions that we could ask Lawrence. We got a fair bit. Thank you so much for all the response. Unfortunately, we could not. We probably will not be able to get to all of them in the time that we have today. So I shortlisted about 12 questions, which I thought were pretty relevant and timely with everything that's going on, and we'll do our best to get to all of them. So, Lawrence, I'm going to kick off with the first one. It's really not something very immig. I would say immigration or filing related, but it's more from a concerned immigrant standpoint. And the question I'm going to read out is, how do I get through the next 4 years being calm and collected with all the hype of news that's been going around the media? There's a lot of us who live here or studying here with no intent of harming anybody. We're just minding our lives, trying to make a living, contributing to society in a peaceful way. Uh, but this constant state of fear is extremely troubling and not helping. Uh, how do we get through this? Like, as an immigration lawyer, do you have any suggestions or any advice?
right. I mean, it is a really good question. And that's why I asked you actually to
Yeah.
start with this question. Um, I don't have like the ultimate answer to it because the situation is really right now, things are
Yep.
scary in a way,
Yep.
even for me personally. I mean, not on the immigration side. I mean, I'm a U.S. citizen by now, but um, it is very nerve-wracking. What I would recommend is a few things. I mean, I can't tell people not to read the news or not to watch the news because it's impossible. We
Yep.
we will read the news.
Yep.
Um, but a couple things. I think before when you read something in the news and you think, "Oh, does that apply to me?" Um, think about, uh, or let's say, try not to draw any conclusions before you actually
Yep.
talk to an
Yep.
expert, because often you hear things and then you think, "Oh, this is exactly my situation," but actually there are certain factors that are very different that you might not know about. um, and that may be very relevant. So I would say, stay calm and
Yep.
carry on. That's an important part. One idea somebody brought up, a friend of mine, is, we all go to the doctor once a year for a checkup.
Yep.
In a way, we should consider, if you're an immigrant, maybe even if there's nothing going on, your visa is still good for another 2, 3, 4 years, um, to check in once a year with your immigration lawyer if you have one, or find one, and basically tell him, this is my situation. This has changed since I last spoke to you, or since I last got a visa. Um, Ask him, has anything changed in the law that could be relevant for you? So
Wow, I never thought of it like that.
yeah, so that would help you to also kind of, you know, will help the lawyer, but will also
Yeah.
help you to spot issues before they become a big problem. And quite often, if we see something ahead of time, it's easier to resolve.
Oh, that's really good
Um,
advice. I never
so
considered equating a lawyer with like the doctor annual thing. And with
yeah,
how dynamic everything is off late, it makes sense to do that check in with your
exactly. And
yeah.
and I think most immigration lawyers, I mean, they will charge you a fee probably for a consultation, but these consultation fees tend to be relatively moderate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And you could
it
even
might just
leverage
give you some.
you could even leverage your company lawyer as well, right? Because you're going to be most of
Exactly. If you can,
most of yeah.
if you can talk to them, that's perfect. Of course, they are not your lawyer. They may be your company lawyer. So
Yeah,
let's say,
fair, fair, fair.
I just make something up now, but let's say you you were maybe arrested for I don't know, what do you get arrested for these days? Let's say a DUI or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably don't want to discuss that with your company lawyer,
Fair, fair.
um, but you still want to make sure, does it have an impact on my immigration status?
Yeah. And even though you use it as an example for DUIs have been floating up in the news because a lot of folks who have them get notified that their visas have been revoked within a month or two. So
Exactly.
it's actually a
Right.
good
Right.
point that you brought up. So
Right. Right. So in any case, I would say if something like that happens to you, I mean, it shouldn't. We should be all be smarter, but you know, so, sometimes
yeah,
stuff happens. uh, contact a lawyer immediately, and see what can be done, because quite often, especially when we intersect between criminal law and immigration law, if we address something very early on before any decisions are made on the
no, that's a good
criminal
point.
side,
Yep.
then we can often find a better solution here.
No, it's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, same going back to your doctor analogy. We sometimes tend to go when it's really in a worse off state, and you actually
I'm the
pay.
worst. I only go to the doctor when I'm half dead, you know.
So it's
So don't take me as a role model here, but
yeah, it's a good point. Oh, I really like that. Yes, do your check-ins, and it's at least for the next 4 years. If
yeah, exactly
at
right.
least
And
for the next
then
4 years, yeah, yeah.
hopefully then we have, I don't know, Michelle Obama is going to be the president after that, and then we don't have to worry about that. But
Do you like our podcast? Since you're a podcast fan,
I
have you
have
listened to?
never listened to it.
Oh,
No,
I
is it
heard
good?
I heard Newsom's. I heard Gavin Newsom's. They both
Yeah,
started around the same time. I heard his, but I haven't caught up to Michelle's yet.
I'm
It's
not a
on the
big
list.
fan of I'm not a big fan of Kevin Newsom, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, yeah. I'll jump on to the next question, Lawrence.
Sure.
This one I think is relevant just because the H1B season's done. Everyone is eagerly waiting for their selection notices to come in. And that's when the folks who are on their second or third try suddenly wake up and say, okay, what next? What's a plan B? And
Mhm.
day one CPT programs, um, while not exactly legal, not exactly illegal, kind of operate in that gray area where and a lot of people take that as a stopgap measure. And I think there
Mm,
was a university very recently that in the middle of their semester sent out notices to all the students saying that uh, this program is not active anymore and they might need to move to another other programs. So
mm,
the question that I have is, I'm on a day one CPT program. I have my F1 stamping in a few months. As the interview waiver rules has changed, I now have a face-to-face interview. Are there any precautions I need to take for the interview?
right. So yeah, day one CPT. It's funny. I just got an inquiry about that yesterday. Um, so they are generally legal. It's not that that there is a let's say in theory they're fine.
Yeah.
There are a lot of practical issues with them. Um, a lot of universities basically use them as kind of a money-making scheme and are fairly, know, lenient in terms of compliance, and that can come back to bite you. Um, we see that once in a while. The second thing is that USCIS or DHS in general, I think CBP too, um, takes the position that day one OPTs, day one CPTs, I'm sorry, day one CPTs are a violation of the F1 status if you doing a second master or so, or a second, let's say a second degree on the same level, which
Okay.
in the most cases will be second master.
Yep. Yep.
So we have seen denial of, let's say, H1Bs or others if somebody had a CPT following a CPT day one CPT following, for example, an OPT on a previous master's program. Um, I heard, I have not experienced that myself, that in fact um, Customs and Border Protection CPT has stopped people from
Okay.
entering
Okay.
the country
Okay.
who were on day one CPT. I am not sure. I don't really have experience with
Okay.
how the State Department uh, and the embassies deal with that,
Gotcha. Gotcha.
but I would be concerned about that too. So basically, I would look at, you know, what was the program really like? Was that real,
Okay.
or did they just hand me out? Did they just hand me out a form for my CPT and I never saw them again? You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
that would be a red flag. That's number one. And number two is the CPT based on, let's say, my second master?
Yep.
And if one of these issues occur, then I would definitely talk to a lawyer before leaving the country or
Gotcha.
before going for a visa interview.
So, something that I read when I was going through forums myself a long time ago is usual advice is that some people what they do is as soon as they get their H1Bs, they stop their program midway, which is another flag for folks to stop. So, another recommendation that people say is finish your degree completely so that
Oh yeah, 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 totally. Yeah, no,
you sh-
absolutely.
you show an intent that this is not just a stopgap for you to leave the country, but this is actually you're adding on
Exactly.
to
I
your
mean,
skill
you
set.
have to you have to really be aware that the CPT is a student visa, it's not a
Yep,
work visa,
yep, yep, yep.
and try to live up to that.
Yep. And this I know because someone, an acquaintance, that person never really attended the in-person sessions, and
Mm,
because of that, they were flagged. So if you're traveling,
yeah,
the hotel stays, like all that can be used as evidence to show that you did attend classes.
absolutely,
So document all of these, and
absolutely.
probably will help you. Uh, the next question again related to H1Bs. Uh, I recently got a new job and transferred my H1B to a new employer. My old employer is threatening to revoke my H1B petition. What are my options? Are they legally allowed to do so? Oh,
So y- yes, they are allowed to do that, but it won't really have an impact on you
okay.
because as soon as the new employer files a new H1B and you start working for them,
Yep.
that that's
It's
it.
done, right? Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about what your old employer does. In fact, if I were the lawyer for the old the old employer, I would actually recommend to them to do that,
Yeah.
to cancel the petition and to withdraw the labor condition application
Okay.
so that they're no longer
Tied to.
subject to audits and stuff like that. But
Gotcha.
that's really nothing to worry about. They
Okay.
assuming the only risk is, let's say, if the new employer somehow messed things up and
Okay.
didn't file it properly, and then you have to refile it. I mean, as long as you're still within the 60 days, then that's
You're fine.
fine.
Okay.
But yeah, no. But generally speaking, that's not something to be worried about.
So this has a part B as well, and the part B
Mhm.
is the employer is asking them to pay a certain amount as a bond. Uh, is that is that is that legal for an employer to do so to an H1B employee for breaking the terms of employment and moving to another company?
Right. So generally speaking, the employer has to cover all the costs of the H-1B,
Right.
and they are not allowed to ask for their money back. However, there's one kind of loophole here for the employer. They can, in your employment contract or in your offer letter, they can include what's called a liquidated damages clause, meaning they can say, if you leave me before 1 year or 3 year or whatever you guys agreed on,
Right.
then you owe me $2,500 for my
Okay.
troubles.
Okay.
So they can do that,
Okay.
but that has to be agreed upon
Prior to serving.
beforehand.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. Because
Now, this
the
has never been really tested whether it's would actually hold up in court or not.
okay.
But I know that that
I'm
is
sure no
something
employer would
that's
want to
done.
take it that far, right? I mean, why
No,
draw unnecessary scrutiny to yourself?
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay, so the next one is the question of the hour, Lawrence. I am on an H1B visa. I have been notified by my company to avoid traveling out of the country. I have a family commitment I need to attend. Is there any risk in traveling out of the country, even though
Mm.
my the country of is not listed in the 40 45 countries in Trump's potential travel ban? proposed
Right.
travel ban?
It's
It was a
again
deep, it's a
a,
deep
ge-
sigh.
a great question, and it's really I'm really struggling here to give like a fair answer. Um, I was talking to somebody this morning who asked me this the same question. He's not an H1B, but in a similar situation, and I basically told him, listen, look in the mirror and think about, is there anything in my background that could be an issue? For example, did I ever overstay
Yeah,
a visa? Or let's say, did I do, did I work a little side hustle that I wasn't authorized to do? Or obviously, if you had any issue with law enforcement, anything drug related, obviously, or pretty much everything. If there's anything in your background
yeah.
that would give you pause, then definitely don't travel right now. I think the risk is very real. If there's really nothing, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and say that, clean as a whistle, um, then obviously you mentioned the travel ban, but generally speaking, maybe it depends a bit on the country you come from.
Yep.
Um, obviously think about if you were politically active, um, that could be a concern.
When you say politically active, oh, you mean like the student protests on campus and stuff like that? That you're.
For example, yeah,
Okay.
but it could be
Okay.
something else. Let's say
Okay. 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 Okay.
you're sitting every night in front of the White House with a
Okay.
F Trump sign or something like that. Um, if you do that, maybe it's not the best time to travel.
Got it. Got it.
Um, but as long as you confine, your political thoughts to your friends and family and stuff like that, that's definitely not something to worry about. But um, if you travel, maybe take some precautions. Think about what's on your phone and what's on your laptop. Uh, as you probably know, CBP is authorized to look at your phone and at your laptop when you
Yep.
come back
Yep.
to the US.
Yep.
So if there's anything on there that may indicate, for example, that you work at a different job than it says in, than on your visa, you know, on your I-797 or on the visa or whatever.
Could come back
Um,
as a problem. Yep.
exactly. Then
Yep.
then you might have a problem. Or let's say you have a business card with your name, but it's for a different
Yeah.
company.
Okay.
There may be good reasons for that. Maybe your company does business under a different name, something like that. Who knows? But that's stuff like that can always be troubling. So mm, think about what you want to take along.
Yep.
If you take your phone and your laptop,
Be careful.
I'm not a tech person. I don't know how easy it is to actually clean it out.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
I don't think it's that easy actually. Uh, I know some people, for that reason, when they travel, don't even take their actual phone. They buy a burner phone,
Are you
basically.
serious?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And they travel with a burner phone, just so they don't have to worry
Oh
about that.
wow. Okay. Okay. Huh. That's
I
crazy.
mean, it's not super convenient, but I
Yeah.
mean, for some people, this may be a consideration. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you heard him, guys. Time for burner phones.
I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying some people do that.
No, no, you're actually the third or fourth person. So you're not alone.
No, I know I'm not alone, but I'm just saying
Yeah,
it's.
yeah. I've seen some other attorneys too. The first time I read it, I was like, ah, he's kidding. Second time, I was like, he might also be kidding. The third and fourth, I was like, damn, these guys. It's actually a concern. And
No, I had a client who just a few days ago was traveling to the U.S. on a tourist visa, and not that she would do anything illegal or something like
Yep.
that, but for reasons that I can't really discuss here, but we kind of concluded it may be helpful if she does not take her actual phone on the
Okay.
trip. You can always, if you stay longer, you may FedEx your phone to yourself or something like that. Um, but you don't want to be after a 10-hour flight having to explain what does that mean on your phone and what does that mean on your phone.
Yep. 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 Well, good points. I think food for thought, guys. Food for thought
Exactly.
if you're traveling anytime soon. Okay, next one is a very specific question and seems a little convoluted. I'm going to try my best to read it out and break it down. I got my H-1B visa stamped in 2014, but I to the never traveled using that visa. I ended up coming for a master's on an F1 visa in 2016 and returned back to India. My employer got my visa revoked in 2017 as I was no longer employed there. Can the previous visa approval be used by my present org for a fresh visa? Wow, that's a mouthful.
That is a mouthful. So I'm not 100% sure about the facts here. So
Yep.
this did this person never used the H1B?
I think so. I don't.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think he got it. Yeah,
if you never worked with the H1B, then it's probably gone.
got
Then it's a gun. If you worked with on the H1B, and if it's just for a few days,
yeah.
you may be able to
To claim that.
reactivate it
I mean, the way I understood it, I think he got it. He probably never worked. Ended up coming on a fresh visa on an F1
on the
visa
student visa. You're
on the
right, right,
student
right.
visa to 2016, and the employer probably, since he was not employed there, revoked it. So he's trying to see, does he have to go through the lottery again, or can he just piggyback on the old one? Is what I
Pro-
understood. Uh,
Probably. I mean, the answer is
yeah.
probably yes. He will have to go back into to the lottery.
Okay. Okay. Oh, this one is.
There's a sub question there about EB1C.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Also, since I'm eligible for EB1C, can that be done on an H1B?
I mean, generally speaking, you can do an EB1C if you're on H1B. That's not a problem.
Or
Yes.
should it be from an L to an
No,
EB1C?
no, it doesn't have to be. No.
Oh, okay.
I
Well, I
mean,
learned something new today.
of course, I mean, that's the most common, but it's very possible um, that you do an EB1C on based on an H1 or an L or an O
Oh,
or whatever.
interesting.
As long as you've
We
as
hit the
as
criteria.
long
Yeah.
as long as you hit the criteria. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's pretty cool. I didn't. I learned something new, Lawrence. Thanks. I had
sure.
assumed that you could only jump from an L visa
No,
to
absolutely
an.
not. No.
Oh,
I mean, obviously an L1A and an EB1C are very similar. So
yeah.
if you were approved for an L1A, you have a good chance to be approved for the
For
EB1C as well.
EB1C.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
but it's not a requirement. No.
Gotcha. Uh, I got my H1B last year through consular processing, but I never traveled out of the country to get it stamped. I lost my job a few weeks ago. Is my H1B still valid, or do I go back to an F1 visa? Uh,
So that, if I understand that correctly, that's somebody who is currently in the US.
yes,
He had probably
yes,
um, a change of status, let's say from an F1 to.
correct. So I think I think in this particular case, his lawyers or his previous company's attorneys did not opt for the change of status. They put the consular processing, and they expected him to go to an embassy outside in India to get the visa stamped and come back. Uh, there's two ways, right? Change of status and
Right,
consular.
exactly. So, yeah, we can talk about both of them. If he did
Yeah,
a change of status,
yeah,
then that would be totally fine. He within the 60, obviously he has 60 days to find a new job
right,
or to switch to a different visa,
right,
but he will still be in
correct,
valid H1
right.
H1B status. If they did consular processing, which I wouldn't understand why anybody would do that in a situation like this, but
Yeah.
it happens. Um, I mean, sometimes there are reasons to do it, but rarely. Um, then you mean, let's say he worked, for example,
Let's
still
say he
in
worked for,
OPT,
let's say he worked for
in
company A.
OPT.
Yeah. So, and I've a friend of mine went through this too, and his attorneys told him that you can continue working on your H-1B, but eventually at some point for the visa to kick in, you need to travel out of the country and then exit and come back. And that's what the attorney told him. And this is not his case. This was someone else, and I thought it was a very interesting question. Um, if it
Hmm. I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I'd be happy to look into that, but I'm not 100% sure what the fact pattern is here. So
okay, okay,
if you, let's say this person was on an OPT, probably something like that,
correct.
and then they entered the lottery, were successful, filed
Yes.
for the H-1B,
Yep.
and before the H-1B, probably before October 1, he lost his job. That's probably what happened. Or
No, it was after H. It was, I think, I had messaged this guy to ask him this question. It was. I think he's been working there. I think it's been a year after he got the visa approved. So it's been a while, but he just never had a chance to travel outside the country.
but
So,
I mean, the thing is, if he did that, then he would have been out of. And if they didn't if they did consular processing, then he would have been out of status.
oh really? Okay.
Um, I would have to look at the details here because
Yeah,
it really
this is
depends
not a
on
very.
the
It's not.
details.
Yeah, it's not a lot of
But
specifics. Yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, I mean you can't you can't work on an H-1B unless you actually got a stamp and came
And
back
then
on
came
the
back.
H-1B,
Right,
or you had a change of status,
right,
one of the other, you know.
right, right, right. Yeah, if you're listening, folk, the person who sent the question, maybe probably good to maybe reach out to Lawrence with some more details, and then
Sure, happy to.
he can maybe kind of help you navigate this. Uh, uh, as you probably know, finding visa appointment slots in India is quite a nightmare, and people have to wait months and months and months. So a lot of folks try to stamp in other countries. The next question is kind of related to that. Are there any concerns in getting your H-1B visa stamped in a foreign country as a TCN? Uh, there are some there are some rules that state that first time stamping should be done in your home country. Uh, what are your thoughts on that, Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, I actually admire people who manage to get their visa stamping done in India. That sounds like sounds like
Yeah,
an
it
art
does.
form in itself, basically. um,
That's right.
but there's no written rule that you have to get your
Okay.
stamp in your home country, even your first one.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Um, Practically speaking, it can be hard to get an appointment as a TCN.
Right. Right.
That's number one, because some consulates will not even take TCNs, and some consulates will take TCNs but give them a lower priority
Yep.
for appointments. Um, and then, of course, depending where you're from, you may not be able to travel to that third country without getting a visa for that
Yep.
country. You know,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
and then one more issue is, you know, it's less an issue with an H-1B, but because it's a dual intent visa. But often you also want to say, um, for example, if they want to, if the consular officer wants to assess whether you have ties to your home countries, or what your situation is, um, it can be a bit easier if you are actually in your
Okay.
home country,
Okay.
because
Makes sense.
they will better understand the
The,
local situation.
the cultural nuances. Yep. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Yep.
If you, let's say, you're from India and you go for visa stamping to Reykjavik, you know, they might not easily
Right.
understand.
Sure. Right.
Actually,
Right.
Reykjavik, I don't know what it is now, but Reykjavik used to be a really good place for TCM.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
I
haven't,
did mine in Canada a few months ago. It was pretty smooth and
but I guess that wasn't your
yeah.
first one, right?
No, no, no. It was my second one. Yeah.
Okay.
It was my
No, I
second
mean,
one.
generally speaking,
Yeah.
you can do it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and with H1Bs, it's not so much of a problem because, as I said, they're dual intent. So you
Yep.
even if you don't have really close ties, um,
The only thing to be maybe cautious is if there's some kind of delays, then you're kind of stuck. Yeah.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
Just
If you go
yeah.
into administrative processing,
Yeah.
which can easily take months
Yeah. Then Or
or in
you're
some
stuck.
cases years, then you're stuck. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So
then you're
that's the
stuck
caveat.
in a
Foreign
country where
country.
you
Yeah.
don't know anybody, and
Yeah.
you know,
So that's the caveat, and I always tell the
and
people like, there's a certain element of risk, but if you're willing to take that, might as well. So
totally,
I,
yeah, no.
I knew friends who lived there. I wasn't really under any pressure, and I could work, take care of my work if there were some delays. So all these things kind of played a role in me deciding to go and knock that out. And also, I wanted to knock it out before the administration changed, which which was another
No,
reason.
that's
So,
definitely helpful. Yeah.
cool. The next one is regarding the alien registration
Hmm.
uh, requirements floating around. Questions, I think, based for the person's kid. My son is going to be
Hmm.
17 soon. Should I apply for an alien registration for him? He's on an H4 visa, so I'm
Hmm.
guessing he's never been fingerprinted, which is some one of the requirements, right? When I read that, yep,
Now, I have to say that I have not yet very carefully studied that field. However,
got it.
my understanding is, and I might be wrong on that, but my understanding is that if you have an I-94 and assume that the 17-year-old would have his own I-94,
Yes.
then he should be fine and there's no need. I think the fingerprinting is not required in every case. So if
Okay.
for the my understanding is that if for the underlying process the fingerprinting is not required, then um, then you do not necessarily need you don't necessarily need the
Gotcha.
fingerprinting for the registration.
Gotcha.
But big caveat, I have not really studied
Okay.
that
Okay.
carefully.
Yep.
That's something on my list to
Okay.
do because I have to
Gotcha.
advise my
Gotcha.
clients on that.
The next one's on cap exempt H1Bs. A lot of
Hmm.
folks are going taking that route just because they can, kind of skip through the lottery. And
Mm.
can you stay on a cap exempt H1B for more than 6 years? And the second sub part is, if you get an approved I-140, can you transition to a regular H1B and work for a for-profit organization after that? That's a two-part question. Yeah.
Hmm. So the first part is easy. Absolutely yes. I mean, it's the same process in a way as if you were on a regular H1B.
But you need an approved I-140 to work more than 6 years,
Exactly.
right?
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you either need to have started a perm process,
Okay. Okay.
or you need an approved
Okay. So the same rules apply
I-140.
for the
The
cap
same
exempt.
rules apply. There's no difference. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. It's
Gotcha.
not that you cannot. Otherwise, you can't extend it
Okay.
beyond the
Okay.
6 years.
Okay. Okay.
So that's easy. Um, the second part, and I think there's a similar question about that. Um, so if you have an H1B based on a cap exempt situation, so let's say you work for a research lab at the university or something like that, um, then you cannot
Okay.
completely give that up and
Okay.
work in the private sector.
Okay.
However, there is one thing that you can consider, and in fact, there's a whole little industry around that. What you can do is if you have, and that's it has nothing to do with the 6 year, but it's generally about H1B and cap exempt. If you have a situation where you work part time for
Okay. Concurrent H1Bs, right? Yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Then you
yeah.
can
Fair enough.
consider
Okay,
do a
okay,
concurrent H1B
okay.
in the for-profit world.
Yep, yep. Okay, okay. I think
Uh,
there's something called the Build Foundation or Open Avenues in.
exactly. The
Yeah,
Open
yeah,
Avenues is
yeah,
big
yeah.
in that.
Right, right.
I've never worked with them directly, but
Okay.
I heard pretty good things about them. So
Nice, nice. Yeah, so Danielle is one of the future guests on the podcast. So
sure, yes. So
we're
she can
working,
definitely
yeah, we're working on like putting together the questions and stuff like that. So interesting. Okay, so to sum it up, the same rules for the regular H1Bs apply to the cap exempt. To go past the 6 years, you need an approved I-140 or like a pending perm petition for more than a year, and you can't just once everything is done with the I-140 for a cap exempt, you can't just say, "Hey, today I'm going
exactly.
to the
Yeah,
private
no,
sector." Okay,
no.
so I get
You're
that.
still the terms of your H1B still apply.
Yep,
It just gets extended.
gotcha, gotcha. The next one's a little bit of a general kind, similar to our first question. How should we handle visa related questions or inquiries at consulates and embassies? Now, folks have ramped up, uh, you know, questions that they ask when people travel. So, questions are like, how should we handle? Do we need to be as detailed as we can? Do we need to be to the point and not volunteer too much?
Right.
Obviously, being polite and level headed and being calm goes without saying. But
That is
yeah,
helpful. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, a few things. I mean, a few things to consider. First of all, never say anything that's not accurate. Because that may come back to bite you.
yeah,
Um, keep in mind that most visa officers have to do, I don't know, dozens, if not hundreds of visa
yep,
um, interviews a day.
yep,
So they don't want to spend really more than 5 to 10 minutes with you.
yep.
So keep your answers short
To the
and
point. Yep,
practice them, especially
yep,
if it's something that's a bit complicated.
yep,
Think about how can you present it so that it's still truthful,
yep,
but looks that you still look good.
yep, yep, yep,
I would definitely it's definitely worth practicing that.
yep,
Basically, I I have a lot of E2 clients,
yeah.
investors, and if they go to the embassy for their interview, the question is basically always, "W- what's your business? What do you do?" And I basically tell them, practice an elevator pitch. Like
Oh,
if you
nice.
wanted
Okay,
to
okay.
convince another investor,
Yep,
you have 30 seconds really,
yep, yep,
45 tops, and you have to make your case. You drive them crazy if you go into too many details. Have paperwork ready. Don't shove it in their face, but if a question comes up, have it ready so you can pull it out. Say, yeah, here's the
here's what
document
my
that proves my point.
got it, got it. And I recently read something which I found really interesting, and just sharing it for people. And it's like it's called the 738-55 rule. It's like 7% is conveyed through your words, 38% is conveyed through your tone of voice, but the 55%, the most important thing, is your body language, right?
Absolutely, yeah, no, I agree.
Don't you're not a criminal, you've not done anything wrong. Don't freak out unnecessarily, right? Seeing you being so awkward and nervous, and it just automatically triggers that, hey, is that guy doing hiding something, or is that guy doing
Yeah,
something
yeah,
wrong? And that you kind of go to secondary and whatnot. So just smile, yeah, just take it easy,
exactly. No,
just yeah,
that's a definitely good point
yeah,
because especially in a consular interview where it lasts 5 minutes or something like that,
yeah,
it's not really so much based on the facts, but
yeah,
based on the officer's intuition.
yeah, exactly,
Uh, you said, "Oh, I like the guy. Sounds good," or I don't like the guy.
yeah. It's
That's
really
that's a,
it's
it's unfair. It's totally unfair, but that's what it is. So it's
yeah,
not a bad thing, to kind of practice it either with a friend
Yeah,
or
yeah.
by yourself in front of the mirror or something like that. You know,
So first story, Lawrence. I was traveling once, right? It was an international trip, and I in my bag I had hot sauce packets, right? Cholula hot sauce packets, right? For some reason, I think my passport was just shoved in. One of them got inside the passport, right? So I gave. I'm here. I'm at the airport, and I give it, and the guy takes it, and like one of these hot sauce packets fall down, and he just starts laughing, and then he gives it back to me. Okay, and that set the whole tone for the whole thing. It
oh
just
yeah,
it
totally,
was he
yeah.
was so pleasant. He was just laughing with asking me about this. He's like, I also like my food really hard, and then we just connected there, and then we end off. But looking
So
back, it's like
so
yeah.
so you try that now each time you
No, I
travel. You
don't, I
put
don't,
one.
I don't. If I get the same guy, I'd probably find it weird. But it was just a one off, and then I was like, it's these guys are just
Yeah,
doing probably
totally.
doing their
It's
job too.
they're
Just
just. I mean, listen, especially if you think about consular officers, they went into the foreign service probably because they thought they can work on
yeah,
world peace and whatever, and then they end up in a consulate
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yep.
having to stamp 100,000 visas a day.
Oh my god. Yeah.
So be kind to them,
Yeah.
try to make their day.
Absolutely. Oh, really cool. I like that. Yeah. Uh, the next one is regarding the H4 EAD program. Every few years, this kind of gets all hyped up. People try to take it to different courts and try to knock that down. The question is, how likely is the H4 EAD program to be rolled back or struck down, especially now that it's the Supreme Court and they're kind of deciding whether to take up the Save Jobs USA versus DHS. So, any
Mm.
insights in that?
I mean, to be honest, not really. I mean, I'm sure the H4 is on certain people's radar. The H4 EID, um, because there are certain political circles who
Yeah.
have never liked it, and I think these are people who some certain groups who are rather close to the current administration. So I think there's a good chance that there will be a push. Um, Fortunately, it couldn't be done, as far as understand it, it couldn't be done basically overnight. It would have to go through a publication and comment process.
But what about
Um,
Marco Rubio's recent statement saying that all immigration matters don't really need to be put through a comment phase and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a statement. Honestly, I don't think this will. I
Okay,
mean,
okay,
I I'm not the expert on on the Administrative Procedure Act here, but I
gotcha.
I saw that statement and there's a what is he talking about? Uh, listen, there's a good chance he will try that. You
Okay.
know, the way they try pretty much everything and see they try and see what sticks.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would then expect that some judge will issue an injunction and say until this has been settled, you still have to issue H4 EIDs.
H4EADs. Okay.
Now, what they can do, of course, and that's much harder
Delay the whole
to
thing.
they can slow walk it. Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know. I haven't done an H4 EID in a while, but for a while it was terrible. It took forever.
It's around 10 months now, 9 to 10 months.
Yeah,
Someone recently messaged
exactly.
me the other day saying that they applied for it in extension or something or renewal. They applied for it in September and they got it maybe last week. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean it's
almost
crazy. I mean that
yeah,
should take 30 days, no, tops.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but they could slow walk it even more. That's definitely an option.
Yeah, like the perm filings. Yeah.
Exactly right, right.
Wow, we made really good time, Lawrence. We're down to the last question, and this is again a
Sure.
very it's a little speculative. I mean, based on I think this person wants your opinion. Uh, I know that Trump's nominee for the USCIS director, Joseph Edlow. Uh, what kind of immigration reforms or changes can we expect? Is he? He's in the past he's not always been very for country caps. Since he posted Eagle Act, uh, should there be any concern uh, for high skilled immigrants if he's appointed?
Right. I personally would not. I mean, I don't know the guy at all, but the way I understand it, actual immigration policy is not made by USCIS. That's made by the White
Okay.
House
Yeah.
or whatever. USCIS will just execute it, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Um, so for me, you know, what's most important for an USCIS director is that he's a good manager and gets good other managers in
Yep.
place
Yep.
so that
Yep.
the organization is running smoothly, which it has never has never done really, not under any administration. So um, although I have to say it's interesting. I mean, I, family-based EADs, they used to take like 6, 8, 9 months, and recently we see them done in like less than 30 days. So
Really?
yeah, that's crazy. Now that might change again, but it's really crazy. I had some in like 26, 27 days. You know,
But H4 takes so long. Oh,
there's no rhyme or reason to it. Yeah,
crazy. Okay, interesting. But
yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried really about his politics. Uh, I would be more worried whether he's a capable manager.
okay.
I'm also a bit worried that at some point um, the Doge people will go into USCIS and start cutting jobs there.
Yeah, I saw an article saying that USCIS folks have been asked to volunteer for ICE positions. Uh,
Yeah, that's another thing.
yeah,
Yeah, I
so I
saw
was
that
like,
too.
really?
Right.
It's already so clogged up.
Exactly.
We're like
Exactly. I
16.
mean,
It's so slow, and you want to take more resources away from them.
exactly. So if they're really going to allocate the resources to speedy processing, um, I'm also a bit concerned that they want to use more AI for processing. That could be a good thing. I think let's say an H4 EAD. I think AI would be perfect for something like that.
Yeah,
You could basically turn it around overnight. Because you basically just have to check. Has the
yeah.
husband
Does everything check
um,
out? Yeah, it's
has
a match.
you could yeah, exactly.
Husband has a visa status with approved I-140 names match check.
Pretty much. I mean, it's a bit slightly more complicated, but I think that's something that could be automated. I'm
Yeah.
just more worried if they start, um, to some extent, without actually having the technology, they do that already, um, with RFEs, with requests for evidence. They basically use their template and apply the template, no matter whether it actually applies to specific case.
Just to
And
buy more time. Yeah,
exactly, to buy them
yeah,
more time or for whatever reason. So
yeah,
then you have
yeah.
to respond to that. I'm just working on the second RFE for an EB1A, and it's already 31 pages, and it will
Have you seen an uptick in RFEs for EB1s and NIWs and stuff like
oh
that?
yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
es- especially for EB1As, yeah. I mean EB1As, I mean, unless you have a Nobel Prize or something like that, you can almost be certain
Okay,
to get an RFE.
okay, okay.
Um, NIWs, I think it, I mean, I think if you have a good case, then
Should be fine. Okay,
you should be fine. But of course, if your case is borderline, then chances of an RFE, yeah, are fairly high.
gotcha, gotcha. Well, that's it, or it's just the 12 questions that we shortlisted, and it's already 55 minutes. I see there's a comment saying really good advice, thanks from Nivea. But it's I'm glad you offer to do this. It's
No,
much
it
much
was it was
appreciated.
fun. It
Yeah,
was fun, and
yeah. Uh,
happy to be part of the Area 51 family here. So,
you are more than welcome to come back anytime. And for
no, love
folks
to.
who ask the questions or tuning in, if you've got questions of a similar nature or anything else, uh, please feel free to reach out to Lawrence. I'll add his. Can I add your website to the description, Lawrence, or is there a better way for them to reach you? How would you prefer?
Um, you can you can put my email address. Actually, that's the best thing.
Okay, great. I'll be adding Lawrence's email address in the episode summary or description. So if you click on that,
And
you'll be able to find it there. Yeah,
I normally
yeah,
respond to every email
yeah,
within like 24 hours. So
yeah. And yeah, you can also join the Air 151 community group. Lawrence is a part of that, and if you want to and connect with him, and then maybe set up a consultation and take it further from there. So and thank you again.
thank you. It was
I
fun.
hope you had fun as well, and
No, totally. Yeah,
please come back soon, Lawrence.
I
I'm
will.
sure people will benefit from this. And
I will.
rest of the folks, thanks for tuning in. I'm going to stop the live stream now and see you at the next live stream. And I'm just going to end the stream there as well. What do you think, Lawrence?
That was fun. That was great. I thought
Hopefully, it
was
wasn't
good.
too painful.
No, not at all. I mean, listen, as I said, there's sometimes there's stuff I just also don't know,
Yeah, no, no. I mean,
and
and it's great.